So Tony, do we need a formal recommendation by the committee to direct
Yeah.
action to Stephen?
Yeah, it'd be a recommendation by the audit committee to the board. Yeah.
Okay.
Do I think we've done that, or do we need a motion, Tony?
You guys need a motion and, vote on that, by the audit committee.
That's under 5A.
Yeah, so the audit committee is gonna make the motion as the audit committee, and then under 5A, then the board would take up that motion from said audit committee and then direct staff from there.
It sounds like.
I will make a motion of the committee.
Next door brings a different color than that.
Thank you.
Yeah, wearing the green hat, make a motion that the board authorize Stephen to clarify the scope of work and possibly identify the fee into a base and alternative fees for additional items that we have discussed.
Would you repeat that, please? We need to, I'm getting.
I'm assuming somebody's taking notes on this. Why are they doing this?
I know, but I
My
still.
motion is that we authorize the board to authorize Stephen to send out a supplemental specification or identification of tasks that we want these people,
Clarification.
for clarification, to identify items that were not included in the base, for example, the review of the assessment and or the connection fees, and any other points of clarification, so that they come to us with a base fee and an alternative fee for this additional work.
Second.
So you still agree with that, okay? We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So we can put that head away for now.
Stephen, are you contacting the references? Because I was gonna contact references.
For these firms,
Yeah.
I don't need to. I've worked with them for all of these for probably about 10 years for maybe 50 different districts at least, so I know them inside and out.
Well, my point is that, and going back to what Bill said, looking at this point system, those first three columns, unless you either know and are familiar with this, and then or unless you call and ask questions,
They're all the same.
they're all the same.
That's true.
And in reality, they're not all the same. You might get somebody that I call up that Westchester CDD that says XYZ, I wouldn't have them back if they came in for free. We
Well,
don't know that.
yeah. I mean, the first column was intended to cover, you know, when we had this discussion, it was intended to cover kind of if there was any action or issues, or, you know, so that was kind of the 25 points, and it was, if you had nothing, you got 25 points basically.
Yeah, it's all or none.
Yeah. The second one, when you talk about district experience and knowledge, that's where you're kind of looking at, you know, do they do district work? You know, how many districts? You know, what types of districts? Are they doing districts similar
Well,
to
that was some of my
gateway
questions.
services?
Do they have utilities? That's
Do they
the
have
big thing that
utilities?
we have.
And that's where they, you know, provide their references and stuff.
Yeah.
And then the third one is, okay, well, what kind of staff? Are you running your shop with, you know, one accountant and a calculator? Or do you have a, you know, kind of a staff of 10, 15 CPAs that have been doing this for 10, 20, 30 years? So that's kind of how I break it down. But with that being said, as the audit committee and the board, you're more than welcome if you want us to take their proposals and split this up separately, or add again more clarification, we can do that.
Are there any that you would not recommend we consider?
No. I mean, there are some that I, you know, prefer over others, but all of these are professionals who will get your job done. To Mr. Tinkle's point, and this is something that you know, unless you work with them for quite a bit of time, some of them do more in-depth sampling than others. You know, that's kind of where when you call them and ask them, how do you do this? Some of them will take the assessment role, you know, just kind of do a brief review of it. Others will tear it apart and say, you know, look at different sections of it. Each firm is always gonna be a little bit different.
I mean, I think it's gonna come down to, within the audit, are there critical components that we feel are important that then the audit company dive into? And two, for me, it might even just come down to the items that we brought up today, are they included in the scope? I mean, it could, because, you know, if all things being equal, you try to find those things that might strike them out as opposed to push them up.
Okay, thank you.
Adjournment of the audit committee.
So moved.
Second. Well, I don't know if we're adjourning it, but we're not dissolving it.
No,
We
we
have to
come
have
back.
to bring it back to life.
Okay.
Get down here
I
and,
still second.
okay. That brings us to, district staff reports.
Sure. And I'll start, I'll just go through this briefly because it's really, several things I was directed to do by the board, the Denton methodology study and updating what was going on in Stony Brook. The water level monitoring equipment is in place and we're getting readings here in the office. Pelican's gonna be installing, 3 water level monitors on their side of the shop too. And we're just working with the staff to get familiar with running the data. Irrigation supply well evaluations moving along on schedule. Well pump was pulled. They've done some initial work and we'll have a report in a couple weeks on the costs.
Okay. That came up last night at the hearing, and being that there were other board members there, we couldn't talk. That was difficult. That was really difficult to
I
sit
was
there.
sitting on my hands.
It was difficult. I want Tony to opine on this. Tony, I thought that at the last meeting, or maybe it was the meeting before that, you indicated to us that we just couldn't, as several residents last night wanted, in a nutshell, what the hell are you doing with those wells? I think you said that we just can't give those away or quitclaim deed them until we got, as I recall you saying, evaluation of their worth or something to that level. Is that correct?
Yeah, for the board or the district to dispose of that, the board would need to have a determination as to whether or not it's surplus property. And depending upon the value of that property, there's different techniques for handling that. If it's less than $5,000, it can be sort of a private sale. If I recall, I'm trying to do it off memory, more than $5,000, it may require seeking competitive proposals for it. Now, the district can lease that, though, without going through that competitive process.
And what?
You could lease it.
So we can lease it.
Oh, lease, okay,
Lease,
okay, I didn't hear that word.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's one way you can do it without going through that.
But that keeps the district as the owner and the operator and maintainer of the facility, and the one who would incur expenses to get it fixed.
Well, maybe.
Why would you want to do that?
If the district could be the lessor, and another party the lessee, you can make the lessee make all the improvements.
Yeah.
Well, bottom line is though, we did, and we took the action that we did in order to get the information that you said we needed to have to be able to make the decision. Is that correct?
That's correct, and also a second aspect of it, under the South Florida permit, there's a condition, I don't have that in front of me. It basically says if it's abandoned or non-functioning, or they need to keep it functioning, then we need to take the steps to abandon and fill it. And so the question is, do we need to do something to comply with the permit conditions? And so the only way to know that is to test it,
Okay.
test the well.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure that the residents of the community, because there was a lot of misunderstanding last night at the meeting, and I'm sure there will be more as we go. Why are we doing what we're doing? And it's on advice of council.
Okay, so they just want to give it away?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay, yep, I understand.
so we need to assess value.
and the minute we do that, we'll get sued by a resident and said, why the hell did you do that?
That's why you got a lawyer.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Here's one thing while I'm here, just one item, just for clarification. I noticed in there it talked about the assessment methodology report being finished by November 9, 2019. Should there have been 18
Yeah, I wondered that myself.
Yeah, I hope so.
It was 19, we're not done until into 2021 fiscal year.
I wondered that myself.
That's not kicking it, that's hurling it down the road. Yeah, I think it's 18.
It is.
Thank you.
Some other items of consideration, we did meet with Lennar this week to discuss the Carina Flowway 2. Also discussed some issues Mr. Gephardt had with side drains in homes, and also Prado, some of the storm drains being clogged. And the Lennar representative said, get an estimate on what it'd cost to get those storm drains cleaned in Prado and send him the bill. He asked me for an estimate first, but his position was, you own the system, we're not gonna go in and clean it, because if we break something or don't, we're still gonna get blamed for it. So,
They said that to us?
yes.
Oh, yeah.
They
say you own it.
Yeah, I'm getting some quotes right now to go in, because it's a very limited amount of work, but it really needs to get some of those storm drains cleaned out and alleviate it when it rains. Construction trash goes up in the residence yard, the rain goes back down, and they have a ring of trash in their front.
I think it's totally appropriate to draw a line in the sand on this bull that's going back and forth. I make a motion that we authorize our attorney to contact the bonding company for Lennar and put them on official notice of the problems we're having with their, what do they call it, the obligee? This has got to stop.
During the warranty period.
Yeah, during the warranty period. This has got to stop.
Our attorney was there, he was part of this.
I'm sorry?
Tony was in the meeting.
Well, yeah, but I mean, yeah, but I bet the bonding company wouldn't. We need to put the bonding company on notice. I know from my experience, contractors absolutely, and developers want no part of a firm that's going to be taking over as operation like we are, contacting their bonding company. That would be the worst thing imaginable. And right now, that's the only thing that we have that has teeth in it. to get
And
them to come
I don't
in and do
disagree
this
with you,
stuff.
but I think the cart's before the horse. They said they'll accept the bills. Let's see if they do it. If
said
they balk,
They said they were gonna fix those
If they
sewers
balk-
between the lots too.
well, I know,
haven't
that
seen
they
that
also
yet.
give us word on that. Hey, I'm no friend of Lennar's. I left the meeting with the clear impression they would do it. I think Chris had the same impression. Let's give it a shot at it. We have a new voice there now.
I like
And
to
that's-
walk softly and carry a big stick.
And that's what I was gonna ask. I was gonna make sure that their indication was that they would pay the bills to get the work done.
They didn't say that, but they did say they would. The clear impression, they would have given us a blank check. Because this is not a onesie.
Yeah,
If it rains again 2 weeks from now, after they clean it, and more debris goes there, we're gonna come back and knock again. And they know that.
It's raining now.
Well, you know what I mean. If we have a flood,
We flood
no
in
matter
20
how many
minutes.
times they do it, because they are the ones that are creating the problem, and they recognize that. They know it's their construction activities that are causing the problems.
Mr. Banks.
yeah,
then I'll-
and that's why they're asserting it's not a warranty issue, because it's not a construction defect issue, it's not going operational construction issue. They acknowledge that they have liability or they're responsible for it, but it's not a warranty issue, is what they're saying.
Have you had a TV inspection to know that, Tony?
No, I'm just saying that's the position they.
Answer yes to that question. In the past, we have had a TV inspection.
Since, do we know that there isn't a broken pipe or a broken joint?
There's no broken
And
pipes.
there's
it's
sand
just
coming
dirt.
in?
There's no broken
You're
pipes.
confident of that?
Yes, I am.
Because we saw 2 weeks ago over in Gateway, just the opposite now. Granted, it's 30 years old, but. we saw
All of our
problems.
inspections are
We
pretty
saw
current.
problems. Okay.
Within the last 6 months.
Yeah, and Chris, where are we with the downspouts?
Again, he acted as though he'd never heard about it before. This is all brand new information. He even went so far as to say, this is, what's his name, Smith, Russell Smith, that he thought, or his staff thought, the $450 that we were giving them was so that they would run the rain spouts to the pond, which they have to do by permit criteria. But that's how they interpreted our offer to pay them, what they already had to do. They never took the leap to say, no, we've contacted you 30 times to put it between the houses to the pond.
So once you provided that point of clarity, what was the?
He's got it now, and he sent me an
And
email.
they're gonna start working on it.
They're now looking at it.
Just for clarity, Are we talking about the same Russell Smith that sat in the seat where Jim Brand's sitting and told us we're the worst CDD in the state of Florida?
Yes, you are.
Oh, I don't have
That's
any
what I
idea.
thought. Just want to get.
I didn't know the guy.
Yeah, well, I know him well.
There's only one at Lennard,
Okay.
and he's a,
Yeah.
Mr. Guy, I
Trust
think
me, that's far as
you
I
had
can
a
throw it.
comment you wanted to say.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. When you get to this level of disagreement with the firm, it's been my experience that if you put everything in writing, send them a letter memorializing the agreements that you have verbally, with all the details and the dates, you are much better off than trying to come to your recollection or your handwritten notes later on.
And I believe that is our plan.
I would recommend you do that.
Yes, sir. We also, Bob and myself got a follow-up from Mr. Smith asking for some clarifications and estimates and information.
Everybody else that has committed is no longer with the company.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a fact,
If
except for Caldwell.
If Bob is of the opinion that we buy a little time and give him a little chance, I'll withdraw my motion. I'll tell you, this is ridiculous.
And after 9 months, I'll give him 30 days.
Now I'll have to chime
But I
in
think it is,
because,
but I think it is a good idea and a nice, polite memo.
Tony, you're great at that.
The recollection.
Tony, could you take that task on?
And I think, the staff would work on that and do that.
Mr. Gephardt also made the point that it was the continuation of this. He said it's hard when there's been so much turnover of the Lennar staff in Gateway, and he said that only happens in Gateway.
He did.
So,
Russell did say that. Because I told him what a great guy Dave Caldwell was, and he could only do something. But he listens patiently and forwards the letters.
So we'll be getting out in Prado and getting those storm drains cleaned. We have to, and it's not a huge amount of work. It's really some construction and regular
you
traffic.
don't want to deal with Russell
Okay.
Smith.
So what else you got for us?
I don't have anything else, but Kenny has a few things of interest.
Chris, couple of things. Where are we, or are you going to talk about it? We had a presentation a couple of months ago, flowway, large pipe, I-75 clearing, some of these things that were identified. Are we in the process of putting together some type of bid document to go out to get this stuff done?
Yep, got the bid, draft bid specs. I'm commenting on them. We'll have them finals in about a week, and we're planning on putting it out to bid in about a month. It'll take
Okay,
some time to get
next one, Lake Bank Restoration. We have 7 of the first 13 ponds done. We have 6 in the queue. Where are we at on advertisement for bids, getting out for those next final 6 ponds?
Tender's finished all the plans, so we're putting together the specs. We plan on bidding it out in October and having an award ready to go in November, but bringing that back to the board. Have that bid so the documents are back, and we'll be able to award it by December 1st, and that way when the dry season starts in January, the contractor has flexibility.
And then the last one is that,
Before you move forward, and Danny, I don't know if you're, we'll address this, but to that, the next phases, can you talk to any modifications? Have we looked at doing additional cost save
it's the
initiatives?
same thing we did on the 2, Margaret's Pond and the one at Waterford.
I'll save it for.
Yeah,
That'll-
so
that'll-
Nevada's coming up
The
with
better question is, I had asked Danny and asked Chris, we have an approval up to $8 million with SRF. We've spent, Steve, 5.2, 5.3 million to date to finish the 7 ponds, which I believe is close, 5.2,
Yeah,
5.3.
check on that. I think it's more than that.
Well, we need to know what that number is, because that less 8 million, or subtract from 8 million, is what we got left to do 6 ponds. The issue is that enough? I went through some calculations, and I thought it was right on the borderline, but with the fact that we've changed this methodology, instead of going all Armamax and doing 50-50, whatever, I think the numbers would be lower, and hopefully it'll all come in less than 2.5, 2.6 million.
We have that in agenda item number 2. I have a running total of projected expenses for the next links and the next phase. I can address that when we do agenda item 2.
And then the last item is on the storm sewer cleaning. Do you have a strategy? We have $350,000 approved in the budget. to proceed with the storm sewer cleaning. We have a strategy on how to, who gets to wet their beak to get part of that $350,000 to get it clean.
My recommendation is going to be the workshop. We hold our regular workshops on the second meeting of the month. And there's two strategies that we're looking at. One is going in neighborhood by neighborhood through the community, or because we've identified those most critical pipes, even though the mobilization cost is higher, is go in and hit those critical areas first and then come back in.
And a part of that workshop would also be to look and plan holistically for a total solution to clean all of it and formulate a maintenance schedule. So just for the record, we're
That's
working
right.
on sewer cleaning today. We've got funds allocated, and we do have plans to determine how we're going to execute on that and what's our long-term strategy to address every community in Gateway, both initial cleaning and preventative maintenance going forward.
That, I got a phone call from Tim Banks at SRF. Unless and until we can provide them with information to show definitive water quality, they are not going to fund us under the SRF for sewer cleaning on the grounds that it's pure maintenance. So hopefully, Mike is getting this test. At one time, I was very worried about bad stuff showing up in the sewers. At this point in time, it might be good if bad stuff does show up that would give us the qualification to get the cheap money. But if we can't get access to that $2 million SRF money, we need to be starting to talk about, and Steve, this is where you come in. Somebody needs to be contacting banks and somebody to find out where we get $2 million.
Well, and I think this would be part of when we do our workshop, this would be safe for, and that's the next workshop that Chris is planning for the board at one of the next meetings.
We should have that lab day.
Bob?
If we have a workshop, and I know you're center on Gateway, Pelican Ponds would love to participate, even if we just sit alone.
No
So
problem.
please invite us on any of that.
Well, it'll be at a regular meeting.
Whatever.
The workshop.
Then the last one is the existing office building here. We've gotten anywhere on which direction. This was again questions that came up last night at the candidates meeting, where we stand and whether we're going with a temporary building or a permanent building here or someplace else. Where are we at on that? And I guess that's probably more predicated on getting the engineer's report. And we got a date of when that's going to be delivered.
Well, we brought up last time was really looking at getting the development approvals for this site out here to put a modular building in, and that's where we left it.
Yeah, that was the direction we gave.
That's all I have.
Anyone else? I do. Okay.
Thank you. The fountain behind the charter school has not been working for a while. Is there a reason why it's not working? I have had complaints that it's not working.
It was, in my direction, removed, broken, and it's the only fountain we have. And we aren't under any obligation or development order, it's purely aesthetic. So if the charter school would like to have a nice fountain behind their
No, it wasn't the
school,
charter school, it was residents that went by.
It's, yes, it's the only fountain we have, we aren't required to have it, it's broken, we just pulled it out, so.
Because it's still there.
Okay, so it's pulled out, but no, it's not functioning, it would have to.
Can hardly hear you, Chris.
Sorry, it's not functioning, it would have to be replaced.
Are we going to replace, is your plan to replace it just with an aerator or?
We could replace it with an aerator, but right now, nothing. We did not have an aerator in there, and it was evidently put in there for aesthetic reasons.
Correct.
Yeah, and it's the only fountain we have, and it's like, well, if we only have one, so.
But because it's there. Okay. The other thing is, the proposal development at Griffin and Gateway, the decision, okay? Somebody got an email that went to
Corps of Engineers?
went to the demonstration they had out, and they were on email list, and what they got was that it's gonna have to go to a public hearing.
We haven't received notification of that, but we would be on that list. As residents send a letter, and I sent a letter, we were just following up because we hadn't received any.
So that's what I had heard from the resident.
if I may add one thing I didn't talk on, is the last item I have on there, beginning September 10th. Griffin Drive is gonna close at State Road 82 for several weeks, if not longer, so, life is gonna become very inconvenient for
So there's gonna
everyone.
be a
in this
policeman
community.
down here at that intersection in the mornings. That's gonna be chaos. It'll back up all the way to the office.
And the county is moving forward. It's popped up on their design list and also on Commerce. It was 2 or 3 years out. They came in and asked us for utility information because they're designing a roundabout at Gateway and Commerce Lakes. They've started. At Griffin Road, they're also
At the
looking.
restaurant?
Commerce Lakes Drive.
Yes, the restaurant.
So there and at Griffin, where the
And at
7-Eleven is?
Griffin, they're looking at a light, but down at Commerce Lakes Drive, a roundabout.
They'll figure it out.
Okay, the Comcast at Stony Brook, do you still have somebody out there watching?
No.
That would make, breaking the irrigation? Okay.
We were worried, we were worried about our lines and where they crossed, and that when you go into those private streets and we don't have the main lines, we don't have an inspector out there.
I thought that was all part of the gateway.
No, those are really private, they're up in people's yards now, not our own.
Yeah.
I just thought
They're going
I'd
down
double
the
check.
side roads,
Thank you.
You're on your own.
Utility man.
Good evening, Kenny Hall, Utility Manager. I'm going to start with the fire hydrant maintenance. The 2018 maintenance program is going to an end at midnight on the 13th of next week. Once we do these repairs, we have 3 fire hydrants we're going to have to repair, and then we are going to have to shut down the entire. We are planning on shutting down the entire West Links water main. We have a valve. There's 3 points that are going to need to be isolated. We have a valve on the entrance of South Fairway Isles that is not going, we were anticipating is not going to work. And we are going to have to keep moving back until we get to a point where we have reached isolation of that water main, and our contractors can go in and do the repairs. The problems that we're encountering is that we do not know. We do not know what valves are going to work, where we are going to get to before we achieve isolation. So what we did was just blanketed boil water notice in the entire Gateway Greens community. It could be, we're going to start valving off at about quarter to 12. We should have everything wrapped up. If everything goes well, 25 minutes, we should have everything isolated. The one valve that goes into the Fairway Isles community is a 10-inch gate valve, which requires 30 turns to completely isolate it. We're getting 24 turns. So that tells us right away that it's only partially closing, it's not going to work, and we're going to have to go back. So
You just need to keep turning.
that would be really good if that would happen. That would be really really good. It might happen. It might happen that we get there and we're able to completely isolate. No problem. We can do our repairs and be done with it. But we are anticipating, and as we see in the Gateway Greens community on the north end or the south end, those valves do not work. So we're anticipating that happening. So that is where we are at on that. It's creating a lot more operational issues than what we anticipated. We're anticipating only shutting down 4 of the communities with 0 water. So with that valve not working, we're anticipating that it's not going to happen.
Pardon me, when are you gonna do that?
That will be done on the midnight on the 13th.
At the same time, 82 and Griffin Drive intersection is closed?
We're redoing it at midnight. We're redoing it at midnight. We're going to be shut down at 12 midnight, and we're anticipating 4 to 6 hours. So we should have water service back online between 4:30 and 6:30 a.m.
They could wait till Thanksgiving Day.
How many more places, we've talked about this, the boards previous have talked about this, exercising valves. We never bought the equipment, we never subcontracted out. How many of the valves do we really have in this community that work?
The answer to that question is I don't know, 100%. I will tell you, anything below 2005 down is always automatically questionable. Stony Brook's work, we exercise them. We're exercising every community that we go in as we go on our crew days. In the experience that I've had as a field operator and now as a management, when we get into the 20-year communities, it's crapshoot. We just do not know. And we only know when, especially on the potable side, we can only exercise, we can't isolate, so we can only exercise and count the turns and go along, but you really won't know until you have a break, and you have to isolate that line.
What does the painting, I've had people ask me, what does the painting on both the fire hydrants and the valve boxes mean? Especially if it's red.
Red is for fire hydrants, and the reason we do that, especially for the fire hydrants, is if it breaks, and it has to be immediately identifiable.
So
There
does
it is.
red mean it's?
Red is fire hydrant.
Doesn't work?
No, red caps that you're talking about, the
Yes.
concrete caps, that is a fire hydrant isolation valve.
But how do you know it works or not?
You exercise it. You open up the hydrant and let the water run through, and then crank that valve. And
Has it been done?
from what we're seeing, not nearly on a one-year maintenance program.
And then the valves in the streets, where we have the irrigation and the water together, typically they're always together.
Yeah.
Are those operational?
Hit and miss. We found hit and miss. We found in Pinewood Lakes when we had that irrigation break about 3 months ago, all those valves failed. The
Have
only way
we-
we could shut it down was to shut the plant or shut the irrigation system.
Have we
down.
taken a map of Gateway, of our water and irrigation, identified 10, 15, 20, 30 key valves that would avoid us from turning off huge areas of Gateway, and tested them to find out if they're good or bad?
As of now, no. What we do is we go in once a week to each community, and we go community by community, and we test every valve along the way, water, irrigation, and fire. And then if it's bad, we mark it, if it's bad, we don't paint those caps.
So this is inclusive in our repair and replacement budget for the next 5 years. That's where we came up with that huge number.
For valve replacements, yeah. And then on the same token, we have plug valves, 3 per lift station. And a lot of those have, we found for the hurricane with using the Thompson pump, that we anticipated that they would fail and they would never run.
It froze.
Some of them froze, some of them did not.
I think what I hear and maybe what I interpret and what I would like for everyone, the residents to understand, because these are critical issues. Something happens, being able to isolate a valve can be very important or catastrophic on the other end. I think what I'd like to see is an actual kind of report or plan that says, here's what needs to be done, or ideal state, every valve works, whatever ideal state is. Here's what we don't know, which is we don't know which ones are working, which ones not. What are we doing today? Here's our plan to go in and test, and then however long that takes, because I think it's really important for the community to really understand where the deficiencies have been in the past, and I'm almost kind of tired of talking about things that happened way before my time or most of us on this board's time, but what are we doing to fix and to determine maintenance routines? And I know Chris and Kenny, you guys have been doing a lot of that. We've been doing a lot of discovery, looking at maintenance schedules, fixing things, and a lot of times we don't know what needs to be fixed until it breaks or until we go through and do these maintenance checks. But I think if we had something more tangible that says, here's where we're going, here's where we're at today, and here's our plan, here's how long it's going to take us to get there, and why that's important. And that's something we can either put in a report or publish out on the website so the residents say, at least we know what you're doing, and we know why you're having to spend money or add additional staffs. And that tells a story, and that makes sense. So.
And I want to walk into the Griffin Drive lift station. It goes right back to the valves. This Griffin Drive lift station up here by the 7-Eleven is connected twice to the force mains, 6 and a 12. Both of those plug valves failed. We couldn't do any work on that lift station until we can isolate it from the force main to go in and do the work. And because if you do all the work and then try to hook it in force main, you can't isolate it. So we did that We shut the entire collection system down. We worked with Lee County on the plant side. As a result of that, they're gonna change their operating procedures for their plant because there again, the plug valves were frozen. We could not isolate them, so the only way for us to achieve zero pressure was to go to the plant, shut it down and valve it off. Once we did that, the contractors were able to change those valves out. To give you an estimate.
So that's fixed now?
The plug valves, the isolation, that was part one of that lift station rehab, were operational at, per plug valve is about $6,000. That is a rough estimate. Anything to do with sewer is a problem, always. It's never easy. Water is just, it makes a mess and you lose a lot of water. Sewer is a completely different monster altogether. So when we did this, it was a good rough estimate for a plug valve. Sewer inline plug valve is about $6,200.
Kenny, you got a 6 and 12 at Hidden Lakes, you got a 6 and 12 Girl Scout, you got a 6 and 12 down on B1. Do they all work or not work?
No, you know. We know
Say
that
that again.
the Commerce Lakes Drive and Gateway Boulevard plug valve worked. Because when we had that break there on Commerce Lakes for that force main, that isolated, it worked.
Hidden Lakes and
Coming
Girl Scout
down
are
to the Griffin
critical.
Drive and Gateway Boulevard, those valves do not work. They are, when they did the paving, there's several issues there. And then again, on this side of Griffin Drive, when it comes in and goes into the plant, 4 in a row, they do not work.
And that's 2 plug valves? Per,
Each, with the way the gateway was built, was they built with a 6-inch line and a 12-inch line, thinking that the 6 would handle low flows, and then as gateway grew, then they'd go in with the 12. So all the pump stations come out, Y into the 6 with the plug valve, Y into the 12 with the plug valve, and that's why we got this mess.
so basically, we've got those 3, and if plug valves don't work, then that's $36,000 right there in order
Bingo.
to fix.
And all of those are in locations that are a nightmare to
Yes,
fix.
that Gateway Griffin Drive intersection there, those plug valves are
It's a mess.
a mess. It's an absolute mess. And what we know now is if we were to have a force main break, when we shut down all of our lift stations, we can go to that plant, valve it off, and poof, pressure is completely reduced. Lee County was really surprised that that worked the way that it did, so much that they've changed their operating procedures for that.
That's
plant.
why we need parallel force main to the treatment plant.
Yes, that would be a good start on that with that program, that station plug valves isolation. We are going to start to do the wells, which is scheduled for September 7th or September 17th. The Raven lining is scheduled. The lift station should be back online and operational by the 23rd. 17th is a Monday. And when they do the coating for the it's called a Raven lining, that is about a 3-day process. So once that is completed, they'll put the station all back together and back online. And I wanted to touch on this staff capabilities. Since I've been working with on the management side of this, where we have been going with our new employees is starting to get more capabilities. We're getting better and better and better as we go along. Sewer cleanouts, our staff is completely capable of doing that now. We do not need to contract that out. Anything below 4-inch water or irrigation, not so much sewer, we have our staff can take care of that. That's another big contribution on where we're heading as far as utility. Right now, we are installing water and irrigation lines. We have to move to the SCADA box at all the lift stations. Our staff can handle that now. The estimates to do that were about $1,100 for us to contract that out to bring the water lines. We're doing it now for parts. As we go along, we're getting better and better, and we're taking on more and more, which is what where I'm kind of taking the utility and the field staff to get. The more we can do, the better off we are.
That's
So we're-
that's
so we're
wonderful.
s-
That's wonderful.
And so we're saving money
Yes.
by building internal capability, which, again, we continue to, add staff, we'll need somewhere to put them.
Yes.
So, I can't
It-
compliment you enough in that,
Yeah,
internal
that's
capability, we have better accountability, we have better management, and if it cost saves, that's.
When we're doing it, the more we get, that we're capable of doing. It shows a very
Yeah,
It's
substantial
also a
saving.
faster response.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's wonderful.
Chris, where are we on licensing?
As far as staff licensing,
Yeah, staff licensing on water and wastewater. We got all
I'm
licenses.
Chris is licensed, I'm licensed, Terry Anglin, water, wastewater, both. We don't require a collection distribution license yet. DEP does not require that yet. They do require water distribution.
Water distribution,
Yes.
so we have that covered.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And we're a class 2 system as well. We've changed that. We're above 10,000, below 50,000. So we've changed it into we changed to a class 2 system where we were always a class 3 system. And then lastly on irrigation, we started with the master meters and shifting them over to the non-watering days. With Devonshire Lakes, Villages of Stony Brook, Magnolia Lakes, and Champions Green, our master meter communities, that Champions Green is gonna come in more towards the end, or the 1st of October. Villages of Stony Brook, Magnolia Lakes, and Devonshire Lakes are currently, we moved their watering times. We moved them off of all the peak times, with the exception of Magnolia Lakes on Saturdays. Saturdays, they are still watering. Monday and Tuesday and Friday and Saturday are the watering days. And the reason we did this is, we're trying to spread the demand out as best we can. With the 4-pump scenario, what happens is that if in any of that time period from January to, I would say, whenever it starts to rain, we're running 4 pumps, full, at our peaks. Through majority of the watering days, we're at 4 pumps. And if we lose one of those pumps, we're dropping almost 30% of our ability to deliver water. It puts us in operationally, it puts you in a very precarious situation, whereas if one of those pumps breaks, say we had a lightning storm and one of those pumps takes a lightning strike. Those pumps take 4 to 6 weeks for a lead time to get a new one in there. It creates all kinds of operational challenges. So what we've tried to do is look at the master meter communities, and then we're going to try to phase all of them off of the peak times and spread this demand out. And what we also looked at with Zane from Mainscape was the district. The district is the 800-pound gorilla in the ring. We are the biggest user by far. We beat everybody, probably almost combined, if you really look at it, in what we do with our irrigation system. So when we could not take Magnolia Lakes off of Saturday, so I had to remove that Saturday. I had our Mainscape irrigation, who's Zane, go in and look at it and move the district, all the district irrigation that we're responsible for in our common areas, off of Saturday all together. Now we're going to run this for 30 days, and each community I put a data logger to track the pressure, and with Leslie, we do weekly reports. We can tell with our system exactly how much water is going through there and then start plugging it in. One of the biggest things that we found was that so many people water 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. And if we make real drastic changes, and people that are normally should be watering on Saturday and are not watering on Saturday, and force everybody onto that Saturday, we could get into a real serious problem with pressure issues and meeting demand. So we started on the master meter communities, and we're just going to slowly start to really move this demand and spread this demand out as best we can.
And how are you regulating that, Kenny? Are you
We
turning the water off on those?
With our metering system and our AMI system, we can tell exactly who's doing it and what
Well,
times.
but are you shutting the watering?
On the master meter communities, yes.
Yeah, so if it's an off day, when they're not supposed to be watering, there's no water supplied to that community. Okay.
And then also, from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock, we run under low pressure 7 days a week. At 9 o'clock in the morning, because there's no water from 9 to 5. So what I do is I set the programming to drop the pressure to 55 PSI, and what that allows us to do is residents need their irrigation worked on, or they want to test their system, all kinds of variables pop up. Where
They'll get some water, but they won't get full pressure.
it's not full pressure.
Yeah.
You're not going to get the full demand.
And Kenny, what I see is, especially like along Gateway Boulevard, almost on the left-hand side if you're headed towards 82, there's not a whole lot of grassy area. However, we've got full sprinklers that are covering sidewalks, going out.
Concrete roads.
Yeah. I mean, is it, from a cost-benefit perspective, I mean, should we be looking at alternate methods of watering, as far as maybe different heads, more, what do they call, like, just different heads that wouldn't
Yes.
pull some, I mean,
We probably
you guys
should
are
have-
looking into all the different types of
We
scenarios.
look at that, and ultimately it comes down to how what the cost and what exactly you're trying to accomplish. If we've got
Water.
trees, another one is the trees. If you watch those sprinkler heads, a lot of them, they miss, you'll miss huge swaths because it'll hit a tree, and nobody ever notices that because it's running at night. There's, you know,
Well,
stuff like that.
The ones along,
Ground's brown.
Yeah.
Gateway Boulevard towards Stony Brook, those things are coming on at like 7:30. There's, every time that I'm going down that road, I see, the other day I saw, a couple with a stroller on the street because the sprinklers were on and it was like 7:30. And I've seen people running, they've got to get on, you know, so, and that's a concern.
Your problem is you get the sidewalk in between the two grasses, so there's nothing you can do.
There's
Unless you wanna run
just
another
so many
lines.
different scenarios, every scenario and zone, I mean, there's so many variables, there just literally is. When you get down and actually go out there and try to look at everything and try to come up with a plan, there's so many variables that it's tricky.
And I just
Very
have
tricky.
one final question. So 'tis the season for storms and that type of stuff. How prepared are we for another time event? I know we've gotten a lot of rain. We're already at high water marks in the lakes. Just so it's on the record. How do you feel as far as where we're at right now? What preventative maintenance do we have in place at this point if we were to get a tropical storm or another hurricane come through?
Chris, did you exercise all the valves? The sluice gates?
Recently on the weirs, yes, we did, to make sure they were operational, and
Yeah.
from the stormwater standpoint, that's really all we can do
That's all
at this
we can
point
do.
to make sure we can, that they function.
Just lower the adjustable weirs and let about 2 feet out of the lakes. You don't have a problem.
On the utility side, we have 4 generators operational, and we have 1 Thompson bypass pump operational. We have 1 generator in the field on one of our master stations that is operational. Should we lose all of our power collection system for 48 hours, I'm fairly confident with our staff that we would, any kind of sanitary sewer overflow, which would only occur if the lift stations weren't pumped down, would be very minimal, I
And
believe.
Chris-
Much better off than we were last year.
And
Unless
Chris-
residents open manholes out and let the stormwater in.
And Chris, we've got hurricane disaster protocols in place for communication failures, you know, some of the issues that we had last year, no cell service, no power.
Well, we've done a lot better with that on the communication, the cell phone communication. Also, we're taking steps too, because we have 2 more Thompson pumps in the budget right now that we're ordering, because there's a 12-week lead time, and one of them will be permanent, it'll go into the Stony Brook master station to keep that operational. Another will be a field pump, so we can move it around and pump the stations down.
But in the event that cell service does go down, do we have radios or anything like that on staff or no emergencies?
It's we did the capital budget last year before. What we have kind of switched course on was that we're planning on installing emergency bypass pump connections on every station. All the ones at Pelican Reserve, anything within the last 5 years automatically comes with that. But all the ones at Pelican Reserve are already there. Anything that we've rehabbed in the last 2 years, we've added. And then we're gonna go through it and make sure every station has an emergency bypass connection. Once we have that, that makes pumping that station down a matter of minutes, literally. And it takes it from a 2 to a 3-man job, because you have to set all the pumps and the lines and drop them into the well. We can come up with 2 10-foot connections, pop, pop, turn it on, and off it goes. I can't say enough about those Thompson ones, and we have added another one this year that is on the agenda for
Okay, yeah, just thought I'd bring it up.
Go ahead. Thank you. Mr. Hall, I'd like to personally thank you for showing me the waste plant and going around and showing the fire hydrants and the valves and the generators in Pelican. I really appreciate all your explanation, and I wanted to publicly thank you.
Very well.
Keep that man on the payroll.
Hey, you want to bring up the camera?
Yes, we purchased a telescopic camera with 200-foot extension. We've just started, we got it yesterday, and we've started testing it. We're really gonna go after it next week and start programming, developing a program and how much sanitary sewer a year we're gonna do, we wanna shoot, all kinds of operational things that this changes. But it gives us, especially on the cleanouts, for anticipating we were gonna go into Stony Brook. And we've had such issue with those sewer cleanouts, we can shoot those lines now and actually go down in there and see actually what's going on. It extends our capabilities, fivefold with just having that one piece of equipment. And we went out yesterday into Stony Brook and shot Iverstone Loop. We were in there.
So we got a boat, we got telescopic capability, do we have a drone too?
And another thing, that an add-on that we got, I didn't want to get too many bells and whistles as are unnecessary, but there's one really great feature with this one, is that when we shoot the camera, we have a locator now. So we can go figure out
And you can
exactly.
see where it is.
Ding,
Oh,
ding, ding, and that thing is really, and that'll help us on the sewer cleanouts because they're buried and we don't know where they are, and we spend half of our time digging up front yards, looking for these, finding exactly where they are. You go on their side and shoot it down, and then you get your mirror, and it's a great feature. It's a great feature.
Side benefit, he does colonoscopies at night.
Well, one thing too, when you have a resident that says your sewer system's plugged up, my house is backed up, we can run that camera and go, no, there's a couple T-shirts in your line. Tell them there it is and leave.
But with four boys, I might have to borrow that at some point.
We have found that in Stony Brook.
I believe it.
I'm surely not on Weatherstone.
And I'll also throw out a kudos because when they were doing those plug valves, they had to shut all these lift stations down, coordinate with the county and shut it down. And when you talk about staff capability, they really get impressed when you say you're gonna be here from midnight to 5 in the morning running around shutting lift stations down. And it was our staff, their folks that were out there.
Thank you, Kenny, great job.
Thank you.
Great job. Public Works and Glasses.
Well, we don't have any public works items.
All right. So, that brings us to District Council.
So there's only two things that Tony has asked me to present. The first one is a summary of the CDD website compliance. And basically, he's followed the statute which is behind it, so if you have any specific questions about the statute, let me know. But it's Florida Statute 189.069. And that essentially lays out the minimum requirements for CDD websites. And the chart that Tony put together is helpful too because it gives you a time frame of, some of the stuff is gonna be permanent in nature and then others will be updated yearly. So if there's any questions, I guess this will be the Bible to live by.
What of this do we comply with, and what of it we're lacking?
We comply with no elements, we're lacking in all elements.
So where it says permanent and status is just none. We
Well,
gotta do all of this.
And we've gone and had a couple webinars and we'll also